Exactly 1 year ago, we found ourselves moving west, away from the coast, away from our careers, away from most of our friends and family, to embark on an epic journey of starting an off-grid homestead in the Australian bush. So in this video, we want to take you on a 12-month journey and show you everything that it's taken, what we've had to build, what we've had to set up, everything that it takes to take a patch of land like this and turn it into a homestead that can support our off-grid self-sufficiency goals and lifestyle.
We can't talk about the last year without talking about all of the years that came before. How did we get here? It wasn't just a snap decision to decide to move to 150 acres of off-grid bushland. I guess it all started in our little townhouse on the Gold Coast, where we found ourselves needing to do something for our health and our mental health, and gardening became that tool. That obsession grew pretty quickly so that we saw ourselves moving to acreage in the Gold Coast hinterland, and we dabbled a little bit with hobby farming with some chickens and some goats, and of course we upscaled our gardens. That was when we felt the urgent importance to buy land, and that was the part of our story 9 years ago that we bought this property. We quickly realised that there was so much that we needed to learn. So for the last 7 years, we've been working on a farm that has taught us everything we need to know about running a homestead.
So like Kirsty said, we bought this 150 acre property 9 years ago, and it was a joint project. We went into it with Kirsty's parents, and the idea was that it was a place for them to enjoy their retirement, and it was going to be a space for us to enjoy occasionally. We never really intended to move out here. Well, that wasn't plan A anyway, but we did come out here and we'd do camping with the kids and just enjoy the wide open spaces. For us, what was important was that we bought land at that time. And now looking back, we're so glad that we did when we did. Then came the early 2020s, and like for many of you, it was a weird time. What that time gave us though was the opportunity to reflect on our lives, what we were doing, what we wanted to do in the future, and to look at this property again with fresh eyes. And it was then that we realized we could do what we wanted to do, and we already had in our hands what we needed to do it.
When we moved to this property a year ago, there was nothing here. There was no power, no water, no bin service, nothing. This past year has been an absolute ton of hard work, but we've been up for the challenge because the deep end is where we thrive. There's only so many books and YouTube videos and theory that you can absorb before you just have to dive in head first and try it for yourself. It feels like everything we've done and everything we've learned leading up to this point has prepared us for this moment. And we genuinely feel like this move and this project has been written in the stars.
But it hasn't all been hard work. In fact, it's been incredibly rewarding. So come with us as we look back on everything we've built, everything we've learned, everything it's taken to build an off-grid homestead from the ground up.
We built our tiny home about 3 years ago now as a bit of a side project that we thought that we could use for the future. little did we know that just 3 years later, we would be packing our entire lives into this tiny home and driving the 3 hours, watching it on the back of a truck to be delivered just here, not for an Airbnb and not for a cabin, but for our home. So the first step was actually clearing everything.
Go, go, go!
Even though it took us the better part of the year to clear about 2 acres of mowable land, we look around now and we just can't even believe the difference.
One of the first things we had to set up was an off-grid power system. We got out here with fridges and freezers and fans and all the things that we needed for life, and we needed to keep those things running, but all we had was a little petrol generator. Running that was costing us $50 a day, so we were kind of in a hurry to design a system that was going to suit our needs, but it's a lot of money designing, ordering and building an off-grid solar power system, so whilst we couldn't rush, we also couldn't wait. Water was the next essential system that we had to get set up.
Our garden was always going to be one of the biggest focuses of what we wanted to do here on our homestead, and we couldn't wait to get started. Now, one of the things that we really wanted to do here was not bring in any external material, so that was going to be an insurmountable task even from the start, because the soil here is not particularly fertile, which is why composting has been so important and will continue to be so important for our homestead garden. So just in time for spring, we'd built our first 6 garden beds, we'd kitted out our greenhouse, and now little by little, we have grown our homestead gardens to a little over 150 square meters, including our orchard. When we first moved out here, it was just us, JJ, a couple of dogs and some cats, and 3 little chicks that we'd raised from eggs. Now, the breed of chicks that they were was a Marans, and a Marans is one of my favorite specialty breeds because they lay this beautiful chocolate brown colored egg. A new specialty breed chickens was going to be something we'd want to do on our homestead because I've got a lot of experience with it and it could produce a little bit of side income down the track. We nurtured those 3 little chickens through the winter months until they reached maturity, and then as soon as it warmed up and they started laying eggs, we turned the incubators on and started hatching out even more.
Another animal that just made sense for us to get started with on our homestead was bees, because I've been keeping bees for about 5 years now. Bees are such a practical animal on a homestead, not just for the honey and the health benefits and food benefits that honey brings, but they have medicinal properties in their honey, in their propolis, for example, and of course that wax is super useful. We started with just a little swarm of bees that we nurtured through the winter months, and then when it was time, and we had time, we built them a brand new home, a Kenyan top bar beehive. We've just done our first honey harvest a few weeks ago. The bees are healthy and strong, and we're really excited because we've just added native bees into the mix as well. Food production on our homestead hasn't been without its challenges, and despite bringing 15 years gardening experience to the project, we've certainly had our challenges in that area as well. The soil hasn't been the best. It's nutrient poor, it's heavy clay, there's a lot of sand in it, and so we've had to do our own natural amendments to it. We've had to learn an entirely new climate and microclimate. Learning how to garden where there's a frost was something that was new to us. Learning how to garden where it can dry out from weeks on end. Speaking of water, that's one of our new challenges. We've discovered some mineral content and some salts that are in our water that's causing us a little bit of a headache, but we're learning how to get around that as well. But probably our biggest challenge has been time. There's so many projects on the homestead vying for our attention, so many things needing to get started. But as every gardener knows, if you're not planting, you're not harvesting.
One of the biggest reasons that we've made this change is freedom. We've done a little bit of everything in our lives. We've done the corporate thing, we've done the big career thing, we've done the kids thing, we've done the city thing. This year has probably been our most powerful lesson in learning how to change the rhythm of our lives. One of the things we joke about is how to prioritize a million things, because life on a homestead means that you're prioritizing a million things. And sometimes it's really hard to know where to start. It can be really overwhelming, particularly starting from scratch like we have. What we've learned is the importance of having a plan that we're working towards and being able to be strategic about how we do what we do and when we do what we do. And then being okay if the plan changes.
When you move off grid, you quickly realize there's no backup plan. It's on you. The buck stops with you. That means the animals that rely on you, the people that rely on you, and of course all of the systems that you're implementing all rely on you. At the end of the day, all of this feels incredibly deeply personal because we built it all. Every success in every system that we implement feels like a win.
For me, having the time and the space and the brain capacity to be able to develop new skills has been one of my favourite things about this last year. One of those things is sourdough. Now I know sourdough and homesteading go hand in hand, but for us personally, the joke about sourdough being the gateway to homesteading has actually happened for us in reverse. We threw this question out to our Patreon page. We asked for what they wanted to hear about, and the overwhelming response was, what mistakes have you made and what have you learned from them? When we thought about it, The mistakes don't stick out to us because they're just opportunities for improvement.
I mean, I guess our philosophy to mistakes is you can learn just as much, if not more so, from a mistake as you can from studying someone else's successes or wins. But just off the top of our heads, the solar system was by far the hardest thing to learn, and so certainly didn't get all of that perfect. What would I do different there? I would work with experts. Originally, I thought that was going to cost us financially, but have since discovered, especially in a small country town, like knowledge is something that people like to give away. And the guys at our local solar store are awesome, and I've worked with them now since. And in particular, I wish I'd known just a little bit more about batteries, and particularly smart batteries. So really happy with the batteries we've got, but we would have done at least 2 more batteries, so 6 instead of 4, just to get us through the winter months. And I would have gone with some smart technology batteries, ones that can talk back to our system. That's just a really practical thing that I've since learned, but you know, once you've spent the money, you've spent the money.
To me, it was underestimating the different climate. I did not understand, and I was probably a bit arrogant. It was cold where we came from, but it was cold here and it was cold for longer. I wish we had have built a fireplace in the tiny house. It was not cost effective to run the gas heater all winter, underestimating the climate for the humans and underestimating the climate in terms of our gardens. Like, we've never gardened with frost before. Spring happened a whole month later than we're used to. We didn't take that into account as much as we should have.
Another mistake would have been not taking the time to properly evaluate the land before we moved here, even though we'd owned it for a number of years. And maybe that's because we never really intended to move out here, but we just didn't do simple things like soil and water tests. And I guess if we had have done those things, we would have discovered earlier some of the problems we had with our soil and some of the problems we had with our water. It wouldn't have changed anything. It just might have prepared us with a bit of a strategy and a plan going into it.
When we finally made the decision to move out here, we had like a couple of years plan to do it. We should have done it sooner. That's probably a bigger mistake.
Like once we really thought about it.
You can never have enough money. You can never be as prepared as you think you need to be. Nothing can prepare you. If you want to do it, just do it.
Yeah, do you know, I think we get comments every week about, I wish I could do that, but I don't have the money. I wish I could do that, but I'm too old now. And both of those things were probably holding us back from the moment that we thought this might be what we should do.
We should have just done it.
We should have just done it.
Yep. So what's next for us? If last year was all about starting, then this year is all about establishing. Taking what we've learned, taking what we've done, and building on it for the future.
Well, of course, we've got a ton of projects lined up for the year that we want to do. I want to do a bunch of earthworks. We've got fences that we want to clear for. We've got buildings that we want to clear for. I want to build sheds for all the new toys and tools that I know I'm going to want to buy. Animal infrastructure. We've got new animals coming. We've got to build them homes as well. We want to put that deck on the tiny home and a covered roof for it, finally. And of course, Kirsty needs a dry store. With all the preserving and gathering of food that we're doing, it needs a home as well. That means regulations and compliance and working with council, which we're well into already, but it's just par for the course.
A really big focus for our next year will be on welcoming the livestock community of our homestead. We feel incomplete without them, so we're making preparations even now to welcome our pigs onto our farm in the next month. They've been born, they're just growing up with their mama a little bit. In the winter months, we have about 2 kilometres of boundary fencing that we need to do and fire breaks that we need to clear to make preparations for cattle to come onto our property, and that's going to be a huge job.
And of course, building this channel, more videos like this, more content that you want to see. We've actually been so blown away and surprised. We started this out just as a way to document our journey, and maybe with the hopes that we were kind of good at it, and it might even be a way for us to generate an income. We were so fortunate that that's already started to happen, small amounts, but we can definitely see a way where this YouTube channel and the things we do around it have the potential to really fund this dream.
One of the ways that we've been so encouraged encouraged, blown away and supported us through our Patreon page. We've got people who have joined our Patreon page who are a couple of months behind us on the journey, and they are asking us so many questions, and we just want to tell you what we've learned. So if you want to become one of our patrons, head on over to our Patreon page.
And of course, speaking of community, we just love that comment section. We're looking forward to engaging with you down there again. I love everybody that gets on and asks us questions and shares their journey. Hey, speaking of, if this is your first time watching one of our videos, I mean, you can jump back and check the rest of our catalogue. We've got nearly a year's worth of videos now. But if there's stuff we haven't covered, if there's questions you've got about how we're doing this, hit us up in that comment section. And what I really want to know is, if you're doing this or you're thinking about doing this life for yourself, tell us about yourselves. Where are you from? Where are you at on the journey? And what are you most looking forward to in homesteading in 2025? But until next week, we'll see you later.